So, what if a medical misdiagnosis wasn't just an honest mistake? What if it could actually act as a kind of weapon? That's the really provocative theory we're going to unpack today. An idea that pulls together psychology, the way we diagnose things, and even evolutionary biology to make one heck of a claim.
And this, right here, is the question at the absolute heart of the source material. Biological weaponry. I mean, that's a phrase we connect with war, with conflict, not with a trip to the doctor's office. So, how on earth could a simple medical error ever be described like that? Well, to get it, we have to follow a very specific chain of thinking that all starts with the simple act of being watched.
You see, according to this theory, we're not talking about one single error. It's more like a cascade, a domino effect of misinterpretations. Each link in the chain just makes the problem worse, and it leads to a pretty extreme conclusion. So let's go back to the very beginning. Where does this whole misunderstanding even start?
It all begins with a concept the source calls the observer's betrayal. And this is the core idea, really, that the simple act of watching someone without understanding why they do what they do can literally transform their greatest strengths into what look like medical symptoms. And at the center of this theory is a specific personality type the source labels the outrovert. Now, you can think of them as these sort of perpetual outsiders, but not because they can't connect with people. It's actually because they're very emotionally self-sufficient, and they tend to prefer really deep one-on-one connections over big groups. And here's the kicker. According to the source, this is the exact personality type that's most vulnerable to being completely misunderstood by an outside observer. And this is where that idea of betrayal gets crystal clear. Just look at this comparison. An oververt's chosen solitude, their independence, gets completely reframed by an observer as a deficit in social-emotional reciprocity. An efficient personal routine gets pathologized as restricted, repetitive behavior. You see the disconnect? The system is great at seeing the what, the behavior on the surface, but it totally misses the why behind it. So this is the fundamental error that the entire misdiagnosis is supposedly built on. Confusing chosen, deliberate independence with an actual inability to connect. I mean, one is a sign of personal strength, right? The other is a clinical deficit. The whole theory argues that our diagnostic systems are dangerously blurring that line. Okay, but how does one person's little misunderstanding blow up into a massive systemic failure? Well, the theory argues it's not really about bad people or bad observers, it's about a flawed system. And to explain this, the source uses this really powerful metaphor, the healthcare dragon. So the healthcare dragon is a stand-in for our current diagnostic system. And the source compares it to a black box AI. It can see the output, it sees a person's behavior, but the internal code, the actual why behind their actions, is totally hidden from it. It's forced to make these huge judgments based only on external data, because it's completely blind to what's going on inside.
Now, in contrast to that, the source proposes a much better model, and it's symbolized by the dragon hatchling. This represents a transparent system, one where you can actually trace the cause and effect. It doesn't just see the final behavior, it's specifically designed to understand the internal logic that created that behavior in the first place. It's all about finally getting to the why.
So when you put them side by side, the difference is it's night and day, right? The dragon system is opaque, it's laser-focused on behavior, and that leads to misclassification. The hatchling model, on the other hand, is traceable. It cares about motivation, and that leads to real, accurate understanding. The theory's claim is that our current healthcare system is still stuck using that old, flawed dragon model. All right, so just when you think you've got it, the theory throws in another huge layer: biology. The argument is that this isn't just a psychological mix-up. Nope. There are actual, measurable, and completely opposite biological reactions happening in the brain, all triggered by that simple act of just being watched. Check this out. This slide shows this critical fork in the road. The trigger is the same for everybody: social observation. But the internal reaction splits into two totally different paths. Path A, the outrovert, sees it as a performance challenge, and that activates this adaptive risk-taking. But Path B, the ASD path, perceives it as a threat, which leads to cognitive overload and more rigidity. The exact same trigger, two completely opposite biological outcomes. And get this reaction isn't just random, it's not a fluke. The source connects the autotrovert's response to a concept from evolutionary psychology called young male syndrome.
Basically, it's this deep biological drive to take risks in public as a way to signal competence and status. So from that perspective, their reaction isn't a disorder at all. It's a hardwired survival strategy.
So let's connect all the dots. You've got a distinct personality type, being observed by a flawed system, which then completely misinterprets a natural biological response. And this, right here, this is the precise moment that the theory claims the weapon gets deployed.
So what is this weapon? Well, it's not something you can hold. It's the treatment itself. The source argues that when you apply therapies designed for cognitive rigidity to a person who is actually flexible and adaptive, you do profound harm. You're effectively punishing their natural evolutionary drives. You're suppressing their strengths, and you're basically teaching them that their core identity is a weakness that needs to be fixed. And what you're left with is this systemic, almost machine-like process of trying to fix someone who was never actually broken in the first place. It's this well-intentioned, authoritative effort to correct a flaw that, according to this theory, isn't a flaw at all. It's a functional, adaptive human strength. And this brings us right back to that shocking idea from the beginning, but now it all makes a kind of terrifying sense. The theory's conclusion is that by ignoring this misinterpretation, by discriminating against this way of thinking, that's what allows the biological weapon to be deployed. It's a process that systematically neutralizes a person's natural inborn strengths. So, this whole theory leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling question to think about. If there's even a kernel of truth to this argument, then how many other genuine human strengths are we mislabeling as disorders, just because our systems haven't yet learned how to see them for what they really are?